Hey everybody, so it's no secret that the front under tray of the BMW M2 as well as the M3 and M4 is quite susceptible to impacts that could damage the oil cooler. And as you can see from this one right here, this flap, I'm missing parts here. I've already managed to beat this thing up pretty well going over a set of train tracks. So to remedy that, I bought the Turner Motorsports skid plate, which is all metal, to try and give that oil cooler a little bit more protection. But installing this thing is not as simple as it would seem. Okay, so let's take a look at the Turner and OE skid plates. Right now both of these are facing with the bottom side up, so the side we're looking at is the side that faces the ground. And immediately looking at the Turner, we notice that this is a three-piece construction. You have the side pieces which are riveted to this main central piece, and you can also see there's rivets over here connecting these three, let's say, structural members, trusses connecting the front to the rear half of the central piece. One other big difference we see is the Turner has this cutout for this little bottom piece on the car versus the OE one. It has this bulge, and I think that was really done because it's a lot more difficult to form the metal into a bulge like that than plastic to go around it. So Turner said, hey, it's cheaper just to cut this out, not a big deal. Another thing that we notice is there's this deflector or air dam piece on the OE shield that is absent on the Turner, and this is to deflect the air going around so it doesn't just go straight back and hit the tire or wheel. They want to get the air coming out sooner underneath the bumper. And then another thing is, if we look at the open area of the OE and the Turner one has less open area on the bottom for the air to come rushing out. However, I don't really think this is going to be an issue or really cause any extra, let's say, resistance. Okay, now let's take a look at the top side of the skid plates, and so this is the side facing the car itself. And I think the thing that immediately jumps out about the Turner are these gaskets that line the oil cooler area. And you can see that the stock one has these type of flanges or little rubber gaskets too. And what these are meant to do is these are meant to kind of create a seal on the exit of the oil cooler. So as the air is rushing under the car, it creates a low pressure zone or a vacuum here, which would then suck air from the top of the oil cooler down through it and coming out the bottom. So it's kind of cool seeing Turner included a feature like that. These are just regular commercially available gaskets meant for like doors. How well they work in practice remains to be seen. Another thing to note is the stock skid shield has this cutout right here, which is absent on the Turner. And the reason why there's this cutout here is because there's an expanding plastic rivet that holds the bumper as well as kind of this black structural bumper beneath the bumper together. So what that means is with the Turner here, you will have to remove that plastic push pin rivet, and you cannot use it anymore. There's another one that goes over in this notch right here, which you can see the Turner has the notch for, so you can use that one. Lastly, the one thing I want to point out is if we look at all of the receptacles on the Turner one versus the OE one has these clips to accept the threads of the 8mm screws underneath. So when you do install this, you will need to take these clips, they just slide off of the OE shield and put them onto the Turner. Okay, next let's talk about fit and finish of the Turner. To be quite honest, I think it's pretty trash. If you've ever built a computer, back in, let's say, the late 90s or early 2000s, the common PC case was your cheap stamped steel case, and one of the jokes at the time was always, wear gloves because you're going to cut your fingers on the edges. And when I first pulled this out of the box, I almost sliced my hand open. The edges on the Turner shield are not very well finished. They are pretty sharp, and handling it completely reminded me of building computers as a kid and almost slicing my hands open on cases there. So wear gloves if you get this. Now Turner does offer a more expensive painted version. I would hope that paint finishes these edges a little bit, makes them a little bit more smooth and less likely to cut you up. But this is just one thing to be aware of. Another fit issue I had with this while mocking it up was that this gasket in the rear actually didn't slot around the oil cooler, and I have the stock oil cooler. Instead, this was pushing up against it, and it was really pushing the whole shield away from it and putting a lot of tension on the oil cooler. So, you know, when I remove this, and it just peels right up and off, you can see, you know, very easy. Then I didn't have problems, you know, when I mocked it up. But with this, I'm not sure I'll get it to work, but we'll have to see later if I can figure out a solution to keep this gasket. Otherwise, it's going to go. The next fit issue I have with this is, if you look at the stock one, right, you know, it's plastic, so it has a decent amount of flex, while the turner is, you know, all aluminum and it has like no flex. So what that means is it is ridiculously difficult to slide these edges up over the bumper, as well as having this center section go up over the bumper and get the entire piece in. And I know other people that have bought this product had the same fit issues that I'm seeing, and they've just straight returned it. But since I am quite handy, let's go ahead and make this work. Okay, so here's what the plan of attack is going to be. Since this is 3 pieces, and you know, my main issues are with the side pieces, and really, quite frankly, you know, only the center piece is what protects the oil cooler anyways, I'm going to drill out these rivets that connect the sides to the center piece. And then, since the OE splash shield I have is damaged anyway, so, you know, I wouldn't keep using this, I'm going to go ahead and cut this right along, you know, this partition that separates the center and the side pieces, and then I'll just use the OE side pieces. And an additional benefit to this is, you know, I have the SPL adjustable tension strut monoballs. So having these sides separate from the center portion and being able to just remove these with, you know, whatever screws are on here will allow me to adjust my caster easily, rather than having to take the entire shield off like I've had to do so far. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the turner ear down here in this hole, the mount for the E10 bolt, and I'm going to use the stock shields hole and place this on top. So that one bolt will be holding both the side from the OE shield as well as, you know, the center portion. So the center portion will still be fully supported by all of the screw holes that it has. Okay, so let's go ahead and drill out these rivets, and for that I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch drill bit. And then we can simply pull the side part off. Okay, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my snips here, and I'm going to cut the side off of the stock shield, and you can see I already kind of did the other side. I may have to adjust the trimming a little bit, but what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and cut along this line here, maintain this hump right for that part, and then what I want to do is I want to maintain this hole down here, so I'm going to kind of come out here as well. And the reason why I'm going to go diagonal here is I think this area right here should line up pretty well with this corner on the turner shield. So since this should go flush against the body here, that'll give myself a little bit more clearance. So I will be double stacking both the OE shield side and the turner rear at this 8mm bolt hole location. So I'm cutting along this seam in the stock shield, and I'm doing very, very little cuts at a time, right? I'm not doing a full, you know, as much in the jaws of the snips as I can, because this plastic can crack and go, you know, beyond where I'm just cutting here. So I'm just doing these small snips to prevent this thing from fracturing into the main part of the body that I do want. And when it's all said and done, this is how it's probably going to look. And it looks like, you know, I can go as flush as I can to all of the turner parts, so I do have a good enough clearance here. Okay, so one slight modification needs to be done to the trimming after I've tried mocking it up, and that is I have to cut this this front piece off. So I'm just going to go across here, my snips, there we go. Now this piece will fit. So now we have to take the clips off of the OE shield to put on the turner one, and the way these work is they slide off, but they kind of have a tooth that bites into the hole, so we have to get underneath it with a trim tool or pry tool, lifts one side off, and then we can go ahead and slide it forward and off of the shield. And then to put it on the new one, we just take that same clip and just slide it over till it slots into the hole. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done another mock-up on the car, and yep, just like I thought when this thing was, fully all together, this rear gasket still interferes with my oil cooler. So I've just gone ahead and once again I've just pulled it up and removed it, and now I'll go ahead and start by getting this thing mounted up, and then I'll go ahead and try and get my side pieces on. Now, since I have overlap on the rearmost bolt holes with the side covers from the OE shield, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount these front ones and also this rearmost hole first, and then hopefully everything else aligns. These ears did look like they might need a little adjustment, so who knows, maybe I'll have to try and bend them a little bit. And here is my now hybrid OE and Turner front skid plate. So the hybrid Turner and OE skid plate is on the car now, and I'll tell you, that thing is pretty solid now. Overall, I think the Turner's a mediocre product, from the sharp edges of the finishing, and the gasket's not really fitting all that well, and just fitment in general not really being that great. And really, it takes away from the serviceability of the car. Once you put that in there with frustration, pulling, prying, if you do it as it comes, which you can, but once again, a lot of frustration, pulling and prying, you're really never going to want to take it off to go back in there. And any shop you bring the car to is probably going to hate you when they figure out they have to put this thing back on. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. There are other skid plates out there, like Fall Line makes one, but once again, that's when you have to cut up your stock shield. But that one does fit quite well from the friends I have that own it. But at the end of the day, the Turner is still cheaper than that one, so that's why I ultimately decided to keep it, because if I'm going to be cutting up my stock shield anyways, I already bought the cheapest option here, so okay, I could make it work. As for these side parts of the Turner, well, maybe I'll turn these into some kind of Klingon-esque blade. They certainly are sharp enough.